Cape Town's virtual artist, Lady Skollie, has been announced as this year's winner of the 2020 FNB Art Prize. Known for producing paintings and mixed media works that grapple in terms of gender, identity, sex and politics, and is the 10th recipient of this annual prize. The FNB Art Prize has become one of the coveted visual art prizes on the African continent. Her work has been exhibited widely across South Africa and internationally, and her solo exhibitions include Lust, Politics, Tyburn Gallery, London, Fire with Fire, to name a few. In November, she will be showcasing her latest work titled Bound, which references various writings by and about women in captivity, women in isolation, women in shackles, chains, manacles and collars. But to tell us more, she joins us via Zoom to tell us more about her work and, of course, being named this year's FNB Prize winner. A very good morning to you, Lady Skollie. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Morning. Hi, and hello to the viewers too.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I haven't been awake this early in a while because I've just been drawing.
Yeah, right. Now, Lady, you've been named this year's FNB Prize winner. How has this helped validate you as an artist?
I always tell people, in South Africa, it's quite difficult because you think that you're doing something as an artist, and just to feel like you don't get an award or you get likes and you get retweets. And then sometimes it feels like you're not really being validated within the fine art world. So I think that's what these awards do for us. It makes us feel validated in the space, and it makes us feel like part of the space.
Your work touches on so many issues that we face as a society. Take us through why it was important for you to spread messages in each of your works.
I do a lot of work about a sexual nature, and I think in a place like South Africa, we deal with a lot of violence and abuse, and we deal with a lot of weird ideas surrounding sex and surrounding how we engage with each other. And so my work mostly is about highlighting the brown and black women's experience of sexuality within South Africa, whether it be through violence, whether it be through abuse, whether it be through feeling like some kind of prisoner in some kind of way. And so that's why it's important for me to talk about those things in my work, to make other women feel fearless and more bold.
Now, your art education began at the Frank Joubert Art Center in Cape Town. Would you say that it's where it all started, or you've always been an artist at heart?
That school is actually very progressive, and so they are now called the Peter Clark Art and Design Center. And I think that little school really opened my eyes to make me understand that art is something that can be a career, art is something that can be pursued, and that can also have monetary value, and that can make the world a better place. And I think it's really important when you have a child that you think might like art or might be interested in art. It's good to open the doors for them, because that's really what my parents did. They opened the doors for me to have that experience with a place, like an art school, like Frank Joubert, formerly known as Frank Joubert, because I went there from when I was 8 until I was about 18. So I was blessed enough to do that. So I would say, yes, definitely Frank Joubert is where it started.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your work surely is a conversation starter. So for those who are consuming your work and viewing your work, what kinds of conversations are you hoping that this body of work will spark?
In Cape Town, you mean my new show that is coming out?
Your new show, yes, precisely.
Yes. The thing is, in Cape Town, there's many things around us that we don't even know is deeply ingrained in our past and deeply violent within its role in our past. So I'm having this show where it was called the Breakwater Prison, which was one of the first prisons here in South Africa that would hold Khoi and San people, in hundreds of thousands of them. And it's a place that's now a hotel, and my gallery is actually on the old Harbour Master's house. So I think for me, it's to highlight these weird pockets of history that we're not even aware of. I'm also doing a performance in a tunnel that goes from the foreshore underneath the city all the way to the dungeons at the castle. And I think that's something not many Cape Townians know about. So I think my show is mostly about trying to understand all of these slaves that were brought here in captivity You imagine leaving a place where you're from and then coming someplace else as a slave, and not only as a slave, but as a convict slave, someone who is in captivity, and how that's affected coloredness, however you understand coloredness to be, because I think it's something that really affects who we are as a very complex society as so-called colored people.
And I suppose then it'll cause people to start juxtaposing coloredness and slavery. I mean, your latest exhibition, Bound, which is is set to take place at the FNB Gallery, references women and references writings by women about women in captivity and women in slavery. Why particularly this topic?
Because I think sometimes we forget that women carry society on our backs from the moment it was started. And so a place like Cape Town, a place like Table Bay is filled with women that were put in Hessian sacks and sewn up and thrown overboard, and women that were punished, and women that were just held for no reason. We always talk about Sarah Baartman, which is a very valid and very important story, but I think often we forget that there were hundreds of thousands of Sarah Baartmans, hundreds of thousands of those stories that weren't necessarily covered. And so I think with my work, I'm trying to research more, trying to understand how this came to be, trying to understand how the pain of those women still affect us today in our society right now, and as women right now.
And in your research, what are the areas of specialization are you looking at? I mean, what kinds of issues, or what is it that you want to find out really?
I'm trying to find out what type of creativity can come from being born and living in a place like South Africa. Anyone who's ever really been overseas will understand for the first 2 days that you're there, you feel so uncomfortable. You don't know if you can go out. You don't know if you can walk. And I think this is a thing that's a very normal thing in South Africa, to the point where if things happen to you, people ask you, well, why were you there? Why were you out? And I think that, yes, we have the classic thing of being in a jail or being in a prison or being locked in a room. But we forget that as our existence as women in South Africa, we in captivity in our minds as well, because everything we do is influenced by the fact that we have to remain safe, keep ourselves safe, keep others safe. Always wonder about the next step of danger that might be imposing on us. And so what type of creativity comes from a place where your way of thinking has to change so deeply just to stay alive?
Just listening to you, Lady, and just going through some of your words, I get a sense that, it's sort of your body of work promotes open-mindedness so that people can be assertive in their approach of things and being open-minded. And I suppose then that so many conversations about race will come into play. I mean, what would it mean then? I mean, what does it mean being a colored woman in South Africa, and and all the kinds of issues that come with it?
It's a complex way of being. It's a confusing way of being. I think being so-called colored, of being of Khoi descent or of San descent, I've always wondered about how apartheid and colonization weaponized us as a big bunch of, you would say, a mixed race, kind of a mixed bag of people, and weaponized us very much against blackness. And I'm someone from Cape Town. I'm interested in understanding that. I'm interested in understanding how one group of people can be used against another. And so I think I've said it before, but living now in Joburg, I've been living here for 5 years. It's really informed my way of being as a black woman, as identifying with blackness and understanding blackness. Anyone who is from colored descent will tell you that we all have very different experiences in who we are and how we associate with the world. And I think that colors we should try. It's very difficult, but maybe unity could open our eyes more, because at the moment I think we're all fighting very different battles, but eventually we'll all have to face the same battle, which is our origin as a race together, which is bred from violence. honestly, yeah. And how we use coping mechanisms. I always say with colored people, it's really interesting. They always say, I'm half Italian, half German, no, my grandfather was from the Netherlands, And I think we romanticize this thing where in actuality it's not really a romantic thing, it's a very violent thing. And I think once we understand that our origin in many ways is violence and that our coping mechanism was to weaponize ourselves against Black people, I think then coloredness will really be able to evolve further.
Now, for purposes of getting to know you better, make us understand the thought process of coming up with a particular body of work. What is it that goes through your mind? Is it triggered by your life experiences, or is it triggered by, the developments that are happening around you, or is it something that, just pops in your mind out of the blue?
I think that artists, our responsibility when we're creating is definitely to kind of mirror what is happening in society. And it's been like that for hundreds of years since someone drew something on a cave wall. It has been about us representing what is surrounding us and what touches us and what affects us. And so when I make a body of work, which I have the luxury of making only one a year now, before I was doing a lot of work all at once, trying to survive. And finally, my life has kind of stabilized to the point where I do one show a year. And I think when I'm trying to make a show, I usually go to where my mind and my emotions go to. I think when anyone is trying to make a body of work, whether it's visual art or writing or music, it's always best to lean towards where your emotions are going naturally. What are you thinking about the most at any given time? It might be something that seems unimportant, but I was given that advice a while ago, is to go where my emotions are most at a specific period of time. So I think when I'm creating a piece of work, I investigate how I'm feeling, I read a lot, I wonder about the world, unfortunately, I have to read the news a lot, South Africa is a movie. It's stranger than fiction. And so I'm definitely inspired by this place with all its hardness.
Yeah,
with all its hardness and all its softness. There is no place like this in the world. And I've traveled a lot. This place is one of a kind.
It definitely is one of a kind, eh? I mean, it's just this melting pot of, a multiplicity of characters and all that. But just one quick question before we wrap up the show. Moving forward, you say that you only host one show per year now. One then wonders what kinds of conversation in your next show will you get South Africans to start? I mean, are you going to follow the same trajectory in terms of the conversations, in terms of the themes, or is it going to be something totally different?
I have no idea. The thing is, I literally just finished this body of work, like right now.
Okay.
And the next one, because I won the FNB Art Prize, which was a huge honor, a part of the prize is also to have an international residency where I'll be producing work. We're hoping to do it in California, Corona willing, within the next 18 months. And so I think my next work will probably be about me going to the belly of the beast for the first time, because I've never been in America. It seems to be a very scary place. So maybe that's what my new show will be about. We'll have to see.
All right. And all the best in your endeavors, eh? We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for chatting to us.
Thank you so much.
Great stuff. Well, that was visual artist talking to us about the 2020 FNB Art Prize and also her latest exhibition to take place in November titled Bound.